Zoom, if you could mute your microphone, and if you're new to Zoom, that's the bottom left-hand corner. So we're getting feedback. There we go. Okay, I think we're in better shape there.
Okay.
Okay, let's start over. Vice President Diamond.
Here.
Director Hetherington.
Here.
President Odette.
Here.
Director Rolfe.
Here.
And Director Stevens.
Here.
Right. We do have a public comment section for anything that's not on the agenda. If anybody wants to bring that up now, I would say if you did have something, probably best for the next meeting. But if anyone has any public comment, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to turn it over to Kevin.
Yeah, and maybe one just item of just some housekeeping. We do have 2 meetings that are going on. So this is a special meeting we called after the tragic accident on Monday to give an update and a briefing on the on what we know and talk to the community about that situation. We'll have that discussion, and then this special meeting will end. The board will actually end that portion of it, and then we will go into our regular board meeting that was posted last week. We know that just through a lot of community input that there's quite a few folks that would like to talk about the jump plane and some of the aircraft noise and annoyance. We have that on the agenda for the regular meeting, and the board, as we start that regular meeting, will adjust the agenda to be able to bring that item forward so we can talk about that. So we are aware that there are folks that also want to address that item. But let me just give some information and just start off with, first and foremost, extend our condolences to all those, the loved ones of those that were on the plane, of those people that lost their life in the accident, but also acknowledge and express our sympathies to those close that are on the ground that were close to this tragedy in the neighborhoods here around the airport. And so we also extend our deepest sympathy to all of you and what you've experienced there. I would also like to thank all the first responders who quickly contained the situation and stopped the fire, and who will continue to investigate how that incident occurred. That'll be ongoing. And as a representative of the airport, as the general manager, and by the way, that's my name, I'm Kevin Smith, I'm the general manager of the Truckee Tahoe Airport. And I think I can speak on behalf of the board that we are deeply committed to maintaining a safe airport and facility. You know, in addition to our regular safety checks, our inspections, some of the upgrades we've made to the airport with safety equipment and surveillance, we also have an extensive training program with our staff and a robust outreach program to our commercial operators. We try and build safety into everything that we do. We're also committed to being good neighbors. We ensure rigorous compliance with federal rules and regulations. Also, including land use, and keeping obstructions clear around the airport. That includes trees, antennas, and keeping things out of our airspace and regulating airspace as best we can. We also work very aggressively to manage open space around the airport. As many know, we try and buy as much land around the airport as we can, particularly areas that are highly affected by overflight. And we work very hard to maintain those properties and work to mitigate risk and fire risk as much as we can. As an agency, we also welcome conversation with our community, even difficult conversations. We operate transparently. We're willing to share regulations, processes, access to meetings. Everything that guides our work is open to the public. There's nothing I have, even in my office. Anyone's welcome to come in and look through anything I have in there. We are open and willing to communicate and talk to anyone about anything that you would like to talk about. Regarding today's conversation, we don't have definitive answers on everything. We're working hard to find those things out. But you and we are here today because we care about the safety of our community and are willing to put in the hard work to protect that as much as possible. So with that, I want to turn some time over to Hardy Bullock, who's our Director of Aviation and Community Services, who will give a brief update on the accident so far and what we know, and some things that will be coming forward, and then he'll turn it back over to me for a few more remarks.
Thanks, Kevin. Thank you. I'm not sure. Do I need this to be on mic? Okay. Okay. If you're at home, my name's Hardy Bullock. I'm your Director of Aviation and Community Services. I just wanted to give you a brief summary of the accident Again, extending our condolences to the families and the affected parties on the ground, as well as the first responders. So I'm going to kind of read verbatim, but I'll take any questions you may have because I don't want to manipulate the details in any way. I just want to give you exactly what we have. So, as many of you know, Monday at 1:18, a Challenger 604 twin turbojet aircraft crashed on approach to runway 11 at the airport. The aircraft was en route from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and the ultimate destination was Palm Springs, California, with one stop here in Truckee. The weather was, winds were light and variable, but at that time they were 270 from the west at 3 knots. The visibility was 5 miles with restrictions and smoke, but it was legal, normal VFR conditions for the airport at that time. Visual flight rules, so that means the plane can fly, maneuver, and navigate visually using visual waypoints. It has been confirmed as of an hour ago, 6 people perished in the crash, 6 people and 2 dogs. 4 people have been identified, 2 people are still yet to be identified. The names of the victims on the plane have not been released at this time. Oakland Center was a controlling authority of the aircraft when it descended out of 20,000 feet, came down to 13,000 feet. The aircraft was handled by Oakland Center and then shipped to the Truckee Tahoe Airport Control Tower at 13,000. Our tower handled the aircraft and issued 2 clearances to the aircraft along with an altimeter and wind, gave an option to cross over, head the field, join left traffic for runway 29, the westbound runway, or join left traffic for runway 11, the eastbound runway. The pilot chose to join left traffic for runway 11, and it looks like he made essentially an attempt to join a normal approach to landing on runway 11, which is the east-facing runway. Essentially, there's a lot of video surveillance and a lot of eyewitness statements out there. The plane made a left base to runway 11, was in the final phases of intercepting the final approach course when the aircraft contacted trees at a high rate of speed, and the plane was completely destroyed in the accident. The post-fire crash engulfed both the aircraft and a small area surrounding the aircraft. The fire personnel were driving in the area, so it was beneficial. They responded within 1 to 2 minutes. That was reported by Truckee Fire and CAL FIRE. CAL FIRE was in control of the unified command, so when I showed up on scene, CAL FIRE had it was the incident command of the entire scene. The current partners in the investigation include the NTSB, the FAA, the FBI Forensic Recovery Team, Bombardier Aircraft Manufacturing, the town of Truckee, CAL FIRE, Truckee Donner PUD, Nevada County, and the California Highway Patrol. Staff was on scene briefly, assisting and working as a PIO in the PIO role, and working with them, and then we created a hasty retreat back to the airport where we started looking at everything we could do to assist the controlling authorities. It's still undetermined the cause of the accident, but there is an accident brief occurring at 10 a.m. tomorrow between all the agencies and jurisdictions that I outlined for you. The Truckee Tower has since completed a services rendered evaluation from the FAA. The determination is no deficiencies in service. All service meet or exceed the safety standards and protocol for the Truckee Tahoe Airport Control Tower. And that's service level green, that's the highest level of safety that our tower can receive from the FAA. I just wanted to let you know that Nevada County stands ready to bring in a crisis response team to help our community deal with this tragedy, and any of the first responders, staff members, or anybody on the board or otherwise that needs help, we're queuing that up, and we're going to get some outreach and response out to the community, letting them know that we're preparing those resources for them. So that's what I have for you at this time. Happy to answer any questions that I can.
Yeah, thank you, Hardy.
I've got a question.
Oh, yeah.
What channels of communication are we going to use to convey that the crisis counseling is available?
Obviously social media, we're going to put up some sandwich boards, maybe some changeable message signs with the help from the town, and probably some paper, newsprint ads, and radio.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, I just wanted to just give a little bit more, and then we'll open it up for questions. Is that all right? I should articulate for some on Zoom. Somebody on Zoom may see that there are people in the audience here today with us, and I just wanted to articulate why this meeting meets all the requirements of the state of California for a virtual meeting. About 3 hours ago, because various folks in the affected neighborhood where the accident occurred do not have internet access, we invited them to the building, and we're able to also have the board here present to be able to have that conversation. So that's why you might see people here when the meeting was advertised as a virtual meeting. But I wanted last couple comments is as employees and residents, and I think, again, I can speak on behalf of the board, these types of incidents are, they hurt us deeply, and we understand the pain and the, what it does for our community, and we regret that these things have happened. We very much appreciate you all that you've joined us at this meeting to discuss, what has happened. We'll do our very best through this meeting to answer your questions, understanding that we don't have all the details yet, but we're working hard to find those. As an airport, we'll also do everything within our power to assist the ongoing investigation, as Hardy had mentioned, with the NTSB and other agencies that are working through that. And then once that investigation is complete, we will go through those findings thoroughly and implement anything and everything that it recommends where we can improve safety, and also to assure and make sure we can, at the best of our ability, make sure this kind of thing doesn't happen again. So with that, I'll turn it back over to President Odette and to the Board of Directors for any questions in the public.
All right, anyone on the board have any questions for Hardy? Or anything else you want to add? Okay, well then let's bring up the public. And I did want to mention that we have a 5-minute timer. Doesn't mean we have to cap everybody there, it just depends on how many people there are. This is good.
Teresa, or President Odette, if I could add, if you have, if you're on Zoom and you want to make comments, the best way to do that is just to put that you have a question in the chat function, or to put your hand, raise your hand on the Zoom function. Is that correct, Emily, who will be watching that?
Yeah, I'm going to chat that to everyone.
Okay, perfect.
Come on up and introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Todd Trimble. And I wonder if Hardy could just point out which runways are which on the picture there, just so we're all on the same page.
Yeah. Can I borrow your laser,
Yeah,
Kevin?
you bet.
Thanks. This is runway 11, so if the aircraft is coming into land, facing east, that's runway 11,
Okay.
that's where the aircraft was headed.
Okay, is that the one that goes over our neighborhood?
Yeah,
Coming and
so
going?
that's correct.
Okay.
If the aircraft was approaching the land on runway 11, it would
Okay.
fly over the neighborhood, Reynolds Way, in
Okay.
that area.
Harry, you got the point, so
And
people
then
can
the
see.
other one's the one they were saying that's east, the point faces east.
Yeah, that's runway 11.
Okay,
Starts here, we come in, approach, touchdown on these markings, and then roll out.
okay,
And then 29 is the west-facing runway. That's typically the departure runway, facing westbound, which would take off. and
okay. Now,
head to
is it the same runway? It is
the
called,
same
so
runway.
it's a different number when you're, depending on if you're landing or departing?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, so that's 110 on a compass. This is 290 on a compass.
Oh, it's a compass hill, okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
And the other one?
The other one is the south-facing runway 200. The other one is 002, so
Okay.
north-facing.
okay. And my other question too is, I know, like I said, you haven't been briefed on exactly the timeline of what's going to happen here shortly. Is there any way you can help the neighborhood with internet? Like, we call in Verizon, or do they have a mobile hotspot they can set up? Or, because I know they're slowly taking down the barricades, but, almost 3 days without internet.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
We'll check on that for you.
I'll look into that, yes.
Let's see. Yeah, that's about it for me right now. I don't want to get too deep into the nitty-gritty. Thank you, thanks for hearing me out.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Andy Holmer. My wife Laurel is here with me. Please excuse the hat, we just walked off a golf course, and I think you're better seeing me with the hat on than with the hat off. we live at the very end of the States Drive, so we're affected. The normal one-one runway, we're used to. It flies very close to our house. We were gone at the time of impact. Interestingly enough, most of the people in the community weren't. You got a lot of traumatized people around. We noticed that as we walked around. And so the idea of getting some crisis counseling, I think, is just a really solid idea. To put our home and location of the point of impact, we're about 175 yards away from the point of impact where the plane impacted upon the upslope as you go towards Reynolds off the second fairway of Ponderosa Golf Course. And roughly we're about 100 yards away from the point where the plane crossed over Estates Drive going in that direction. So we're close. Obviously, there's a lot to be learned, and I don't want to go too deep into the weeds tonight for obvious reasons. It's a tragic event. But I did a little just checking, and I'm curious if we can qualify for what's called pilot and command status. Mammoth Airport has it. There are a lot of airports, and I think it applies mostly to commercial. But there's certification the pilots have to go through to land in certain airports. Reno is one, Mammoth is one, Butte is one. There's a huge list if you go online. And I'm curious whether or not we would gain any level of protection for having that certification for pilots who choose to land at our airport, particularly those that are flying the commercial and charter type jets. So if there's some way we could look into that and see, I don't know if this is found in the Code of Federal Regulations. So if you look at that, there may be a debate as to whether it's only for commercial airlines, the Southwest, if you will, but it may also apply to people doing charter work. And I think if we can generate a little bit level of protection by adopting that pilot and command status, that would be a worthwhile endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you. You got that, Kevin?
Got it.
Hi, my name is Holly, and I'm also in the neighborhood. And I work from home and witnessed the explosion. And there's two things I want to say. One is something that really upset me that an airport spokesman said to the news. And I feel like I just have this sneaking suspicion that it has to do with covering the airport's butt. They said that the plane landed in a heavily wooded area, quote, heavily wooded area adjacent to the airport. And that is like such bullcrap. I would like them to correct their statement to the news. It was a heavily residential neighborhood with 2 empty, maybe 3 empty lots out of 150 houses. I just feel like it's just untrue and misleading, and it just really upset me. Second, I just would like you guys to really think about how our neighborhood can feel safe now. And how you can make sure that this doesn't ever happen again. Two plane crashes in the last 2 months in very, very close to homes. It's just not acceptable. And I would like to know, I don't want it to be like this brushed over thing like, oh, we're gonna do everything we can to change the safety regulations or whatever. I know nothing about flying, so it's like I don't know what the options are, but something has to change. I have jets that don't follow the flight path that are supposed to go over 267 that fly so low over my house, and it used to be I was concerned about noise, and now I'm concerned about them crashing into my house. So please, please make some changes. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Margaret Olivier. I live on Martis, and I saw the crash. I had just talked to a gentleman 2 days prior in response to an email I had written concerning the fact that there's about a 500% increase in traffic over the last year. The jets are coming in super low over our homes. And the noise factor, when they take off, they kind of go straight to take off and then they head straight up and all the noise hits our neighborhood. And I talked to him about the possibility of perhaps having the jets take off and land from the opposite end of the runway. I was told that it had something to do with instrument landing and that it had to be set up and approved by Oakland and eventually the FAA to get this taken care of. And I'm just wondering if maybe we could speed up that process to kind of help take the load off our neighborhood as far as noise and the number of jets coming in. And it has increased a lot the last year. And that was my concern.
Kevin, do you want to speak to that? There's a reason why they,
Yeah, we can answer that question. Hardy can also help me with that, but we are looking at ways to try and increase the number of what they call instrument flight rules departures. A lot of the jets leave on instrument flight plans because they're climbing up so high to get up into the flight levels where all the jets are. We are working on flight procedures for a 1-1 departure, so that they're leaving and going that direction, climbing out to the north. And so we're going to be doing a lot of work on that. We actually have some information on our website that we can point you to that kind of shows some of these things that we're trying to diversify how aircraft depart the airport. And so love to sit down and talk more about that and kind of give you more information about what we're trying to do there. The other thing that we talk about in there is wind is a major factor in how these aircraft, which way they depart and which way they land. And so we also play that into it and figure out ways to still try and diversify those flight paths, taking into account the considerations that wind causes. Anything I missed, Hardy?
No, that's it. I just wanted to briefly address, if I could, Chair Odette, Holly's comment. I think I was the spokesman that probably used that term in the press briefing, which was a highly stressful kind of period of time compressed into a really short period. And I think what I meant to say, if I didn't say it, was impacted a heavily wooded area to give people an understanding of where it ended up. But I'm sorry, forgive me if it discredited in any way the significance of your trauma. It was not intended that way at all, and it was not intended as a way to limit the liability of the airport. We would never trade words in that way. So forgive me for that.
come on up.
Hi, my name's Todd again. I live on Reynolds Drive, and I just got a text from a friend that doesn't have enough service to get on the computer. I guess in the last couple hours, they've reduced the barriers to the road, and we've had numerous families walking up there to look at the crash site, take selfies and pictures. Pretty disrespectful for the folks that were on the plane and also for the neighborhood. So I don't know if you can get in touch with the town and maybe have, at least for the next maybe couple days, just have somebody around to detour that. And you're talking about, you know, this is on my, another question I had. You're talking about wind being a factor on where planes take off and land. I've had some pretty windy days in my house, and I still see jets landing over my house and the same jet turning around and taking off over my house. And I know for a fact that the wind hasn't changed directions in 20 minutes. So I think, yeah, a big wind, I believe, is warranted for different, you know, departures and landings. But the average wind today, I think, that we get, I think the jets are strong enough, more powerful enough, and the pilots are experienced enough now to be able to land and depart different, you know, not really taking the wind into too much consideration. Yeah, like I said, granted, if it's a big storm blowing in, you know, totally different story. And yeah, just another question. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good afternoon. My name's Colin Butcher. I live on Martis Drive as well. We bought our house about 10 years ago, and I lived in town 6 years prior to that. And at the time, we were well aware that we were purchasing in the flight path. My understanding of the airport at that time was a local community airport, which it was. Unfortunately, I don't have internet at home, but the number of flights, and perhaps the airport board could speak to that, has changed dramatically. My guess would be a tenfold increase in 10 years and a significant increase in large jets. 10 years ago, we were dealing with mostly small prop planes, local pilots. Now we have essentially commercial private jets flying in and out directly over our neighborhood. A number of you said, Hardy, I haven't seen this before because I haven't been able to track the numbers through the airport website, but 250, 350 peak days of 400 flights a day in a 15-hour operating period. That's a flight every 3 minutes, or on peak days, every 2 minutes and 15 seconds over our small mountain community. We've simply outgrown the community for what this airport is. I was home the day of the crash. I work professionally as a firefighter, and I responded to the crash as a civilian. I can tell you that had weather conditions been different, that fireball would have been a significant event for this community. We're very fortunate, albeit perhaps a last heroic effort or luck, that that plane went down between areas that were defendable and wouldn't burn. We are also extremely lucky that that plane did not hit a school bus full of sixth graders. Something needs to change. This cannot continue. And like was said, 2 crashes, 2 fatalities, multiple fatalities over the course of 2 months. I also don't have the number, but my understanding is this is a challenging airport, and over time there have been several crashes. So this isn't an outlier, unfortunately. We've seen this before. This one just happened to be a large jet in a neighborhood, and I will echo Holly's comment. That news quote was very misleading. There were thick trees there, but it was roughly 30 feet from a house. I've seen a lot in my career. I have Nest audio. I don't even have video. I watched it one time, and I cannot watch it again because the thought of my family being so close to that is horrendous and terrifying. I think that's what I have. You all know that our neighborhood is tremendously affected, and something needs to happen, be it flight control, reduction of jets that simply don't belong in this community. I've been at North Star and had low-flying jets directly over homes. We have friends in Glenshire that complain about it. Obviously, Olympic Heights is not happy about it, and Sierra Meadows. It's every major subdivision of this community is unhappy with the flight traffic. And there's such a small percentage of user group who does not represent this community that our taxes are paying for their luxury and now putting us at significant risk. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room?
Hi, my name is Megan Butcher. Colin is my husband. I was not planning on speaking today, but I was home when the crash happened. I was shocked into this loud noise, this big boom, this shake. I run outside. I see from my deck there are flames and someone is yelling, "There has been a plane crash." This is my community. This is my home. This should not happen here. Rick, we sat on my deck this summer and I said, "What happens when a plane crashes into this neighborhood?" And you said, "That won't happen." It did twice. I spoke with family who lives in Lahan today. She had a plane crash into her backyard. She was the first responder on scene. These things should not be happening. She said that she's had planes fly over her home 400 feet. Too low, and I know that you've helped her with that, and you've been so great about that. But we all have families, we have kids. When will it end? When it crashes into something else? When that bus gets hit next time? I know I'm hoping these things don't happen, but Truckee is a wonderful place. And right now, I want to sell my home because of those jets. And I heard from neighbors this morning. I have not stayed at our house the last 2 nights. But I heard from neighbors this morning at 6:25, there's a plane flying. And I mean, David and I email all the time. It was a jet. Okay, I wasn't there. It feels like nothing is done. I have friends that complain about these planes and they say, what do I do? I'm like, send a comment. And it feels like it just gets a tally mark and you guys say at the end of the year, we had this many complaints. It's increased, but doesn't feel like anything's being done. And I know this has been an emotional week for all of you. I understand that. But to listen to my 17, 18-year-old neighbor tell me that he saw a plane coming down and a fireball and he's home by himself, that should never, ever happen. Never. And I just really want all of you to think about this. I don't know what can happen as a change. I don't know, but something has to change. It's not acceptable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Megan.
Anyone else in the room have a comment?
I don't remember saying that.
Okay, how about,
I have some via Zoom. Damien was the first hand raised, so he'll be the first to speak. He could unmute himself.
Hi there.
hi.
So my sister and brother-in-law were killed in the crash, and unfortunately, we haven't been able to confirm their identities yet. I just want to give a big shout out to all the first responders and everybody in the room there that's taken time out of their day to be a part of this meeting and take the time to find out what happened. The pain is real here for sure too, and I really I'm pretty shocked with the whole thing. To all the residents that are complaining about the planes and the traffic, I hope the committee can resolve your issues for you, and I have nothing but sympathy for you guys. I don't really know what else to say. I just wanted to know if the victim or the accident debrief tomorrow at 10 a.m. will be made public, that I can attend, and what are my best options to get further information on the status of the accident. I know this may not be the best forum to answer that question, but I'm just going to ask it and just want to know how I can stay updated with the FAA and all the regulatory agencies on how things are progressing. And thank you very much.
Kevin, are we gonna make that, how do we connect people to the debriefs?
We're gonna put the contact information in the chat session so people can reach out to us, and tonight we'll parse all that out, make sure that they're connected properly.
For the briefing?
The briefing most likely will not be public, but we can report out on the findings of the briefing.
Okay.
Paul Schechtman is the next public comment via Zoom. He's unmute himself.
Can you please read my comments? I'm having internet issues. Thank you.
Denise Gant also has her hand raised. If she can unmute herself, she can go. Or Paul looks like he may have unmuted himself.
Did he send in comments?
I don't know.
Do we have?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
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 Am I on? This is Paul.
Yes.
Yes.
Last name Schechtman. I've lived in Sierra Meadows for the past 4 years, and first I want to express my condolences to everybody who has lost loved ones and to the neighbors who are in the immediate crash zone. And just wanted to note that the last 4 years I've seen exponential growth in air traffic above all the adjacent communities, Sierra Meadows, Olympic Heights, Glenshire, etc., North Star, and have a deep sense of the frustration in the community. I feel we're at a tipping point. That being said, I know there has been a lot of frustration, a lot of words expressed, a lot of anger, and now a lot of shock. The repetitive flight volume over Truckee neighborhoods, from the flight schools, from the glider school, activity from small prop planes, large jet planes, it's ever increasing, and it's projected to grow significantly over the next 10 years. And I'd like for the airport board to address that growth and how future risk is going to be mitigated, how flight patterns will be changed, and how risk will be mitigated to the extent that the incidents like we've had for the past two crashes in the last 6 weeks will not occur again. This is totally unacceptable. There's a lot of talk about safety. Accidents do happen. I recognize that. But the question is, how much growth in air traffic can this community handle? How much more noise can this community accept? And what can be done about future growth control and hours of operation, short of taking this airport private and making deep restriction in terms of hours. I don't know if that's even feasible at this point. There's a lot to talk about. And I don't know. I feel bad for everyone.
Thank you for that, Paul.
Denise Gant is the next hand raised from Zoom for public comment.
Hi, everyone. My name is Denise Gant, and the plane crash that occurred on June 15th happened behind my house. I live in Lahontan, and it was a few hundred yards away, and I was the first responder for that terrible tragedy. And I just want to echo what I hear repeatedly and have experienced regularly, which is the volume of air traffic has increased to an alarming rate in just the last 24 months. Alarming. These planes are flying over our residential areas at very low heights. Megan and I spoke earlier. Over my house, under 400 feet. And if we think about this and we go back, this airport started decades ago when these communities weren't here around the airport, and now we are very densely populated with residential communities around this airport. And I just wonder if, and I've heard someone say it, have we outgrown this? Should this airport even exist in this current location? Should we cease operations? Something very significant has to happen. And the trauma that the folks who just experienced this crash are going through and having these planes continue to fly overhead as they're dealing with this trauma is horrific. I had to leave the area, and that crash was significantly less painful. And so I just have to ask, does it make sense to cease operations while things are reworked? We need we need structural changes potentially to whether or not this airport needs to be here, and if it is there, the runways and how the flight patterns, etc. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Who do we have coming up next?
Eric Remack is next.
Hello, my name's Eric Premack. I live just north of the Coyote Moon Golf Course, and while I do not live near where the crash occurred a few days ago, I share the same concerns that you've been hearing, and in the interest of time, I won't repeat them. I will add a few thoughts and concerns, though, that I have. The area where I live is not well served. That has a one-lane private road. There are no fire extinguishers. There are no fire hydrants in the area. And if a plane were to go down in the area where I live, I fear that it would lead to a conflagration that would not be controllable and could easily rip through the Tahoe Donner subdivision in a big hurry. I thank God that the strike crew from the forest fires was in the area earlier this week to deal with the fire very quickly, but I don't think we can count on that going forward. I also frequently experience low-level flyovers, including some that were confirmed by your staff last week, as low as 500 feet. And I also think that this is unacceptable from both a noise and safety standpoint. I think we've gotten to a point where we really need to fundamentally think about whether an airport of this nature is compatible with the community from a noise standpoint and a safety standpoint and a liability standpoint. And I'm fully aware of the sharp restrictions that the FAA places on airports that take federal money, and I think we need to think very long and hard about whether we continue to take federal money. Take a look at some of the airports around the country that have dealt with this kind of issue more effectively than we have. We've taken some very cursory looks at these issues in the recent past, but I don't think they were taken very seriously. We need to take a much harder look at this going forward. I'm very concerned about the increase in the traffic. I understand that everybody has to take their quote-unquote fair share of noise, whether it's freeway noise or traffic noise or airplane noise or whatever, but things are just getting completely out of control with the growth in jet traffic in particular and the overall growth in traffic, not just in the past 2 years, but in the past 10 plus years, has been quite dramatic and really changes the nature of the annoyance. It's especially severe in the area where I live because we're now very close to the preferred departure and arrival paths for the main runways, and Friday afternoons and Sunday afternoons when I prefer to sit out on my deck, it feels a little more like Pearl Harbor than Truckee. So we hope you will take this very seriously. I think you have a very serious issue, and it's not one that the airport has taken seriously in recent years. That's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any others?
Rick Davenport.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for doing this. I have a home on Reynolds Way, although I was not there at the time of the accident. I'm also a pilot, have been for 25 years, and have flown in and out of Truckee many times. Have listened to all this with sympathy and appreciation for both sides of the argument, actually, and I wanted to just throw out an idea to the board to consider. Not that we do a Chicago Mayor Daley approach and go out in the middle of the night and bulldoze the runways, but one solution to the problem of the big heavy jets would be to shorten the runways. If we had 2,000-foot runways, we'd be able to get prop planes in there, but jets wouldn't be able to. So just an idea. Thank you for your time.
It's a great idea.
Thank you.
Bravo. You suggested that to the board.
I'm a pilot.
I'm a pilot.
Okay, do we have any other live comments? on Zoom?
There's no more live comments, but there is someone who asked to have their comment read because they're having internet issues. So I'll read that now. This is from Scott on Reynolds Way. Crash happened 30 feet from my property and parts landed in my yard. Can the airport, sorry, it's gonna be hard to read. Can the airport help with any damages that have occurred? I was there outside when the crash happened, heard the crash and saw the fire, felt the heat and called 911. Sorry. There's a lot of chats.
Normally, we don't save those chat functions, but given the amount of public interest in this meeting, our staff's recommendation for the board would be we will keep those chats, add them to the record. And if anyone who has a comment in the chat wishes to speak, we'd ask that they raise their hand so they can do so orally. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh.
After all the chats come in, will you send them to all of us, please?
Yeah, we'll distribute those for sure. So, can I ask real quick, Lauren, I think is on Zoom, did we have an email? Okay, maybe we'll take that before we go to the email public comment.
Lauren McCormick, you can speak now from Zoom.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know I was called on. My heart goes out to the families that have lost their loved ones. My son was on the bus that was almost hit. And if the bus driver had heard the plane coming and slammed on his brakes, those children would be dead. They wouldn't even have known what was happening to them. They had to sit there and watch the fire. And my son called me, and I work near the airport. He didn't know where he was. And then I see the fire trucks going, and then I see the smoke. And so I started running, driving towards it. But, I mean, he's on the phone to me. I'm just saying, I love you, I love you, I love you. And he's saying it back because they were seeing the fire, and they were trapped on the bus, and they couldn't get out. So I just feel like this could have been like 1,000,000 times worse than it was. And you guys got really lucky that the fire department was already on 267, and that they ran right over and got that fire out, because I feel so bad for the people in that neighborhood. I mean, the way fire is dangerous on everyone's mind right now, and that, Paradise was taken out in a very quick amount of time, we would all be trapped. So it's just, I think everybody, I don't know, it's really heartbreaking. And there's a lot of trauma, and a lot of kids that were at the park that couldn't, that there's a kid at Camp Truckee in the skate park that saw the plane hit and the wing come off and the fire, and it was just really, really traumatic. And I'm sorry, I'm a mess, but thank you for listening to me.
Thank you.
Larissa Martinez, you're the next commenter on Zoom.
Hi, thanks for having me. I think I'll probably echo a decent amount of what Lauren just said. My son, Luca, was also on that bus. And I think it should be noted that the first responder on scene was actually Derek Bosserman, a bus driver with our school district. And he was a hero that day and saved our children and was there to help alert residents. And I think that really should be noted. I have felt pretty alone these last few days. I've been disappointed that the airport district, that I do respect very much, and I have used the services from that airport. I've been disappointed that they haven't reached out to the families of the children who saw this happen and dealt with the aftermath of it. I am even more moved to see friends that I've known for years, residents of that area, and to know that they have had these worries every day prior to this incident. Hits my heart, and I'm so sorry that all of those residents who I care about so much, I care about our entire community, and it breaks my heart that you guys have to deal with that, and changes need to be made, and our community needs to be protected. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you. No other live?
I don't see any other comments on Zoom.
So we can go to email?
Are you ready for the written comments?
Yes.
Okay. This is from Gerald Balance. I have lived in Reno for about 10 years, and I was formerly active in flying with our Navy, then later with our Civil Air Patrol. So every time I learn of a crash, I read a little bit about the conditions at the site and other factors that may have played a role into the incident. After the crash of the Challenger 605, I checked the airport information and looked in the NOTAMs for any mention regarding density, altitude, and possible occluded visibility at the airport. I found one mention that TRK was at high altitude and that density altitude was a factor. This information was not highlighted nor given a very prominent location in the list of issues, so it could be easily overlooked. There was no mention of the heavy smoke layer, although the meteorology reports may have noted it. I realized that the reason for the Challenger 605 crash has yet to be determined. However, I think that more could be done to alert inbound aviators about the perils associated with flying into a mountain area, especially when there are high temperatures and poor visibility. One possible solution would be to ask the FAA to issue a seasonal NOTAM that has bold-faced warnings about the altitude and density altitude issues. It would be helpful to have a density altitude primer included in the NOTAM and included on sites with TRK airport information. Here is an example that was produced by AOPA. Number one, density altitude is pressure altitude corrected for non-standard temperature. As temperature and altitude increase, air density decreases. In a sense, that's altitude at which the airplane feels it is flying. 2, on a hot and humid day, the aircraft will accelerate more slowly down the runway, will need to move faster to attain the same lift, and will climb more slowly. The less dense the air, the less lift, the more lackluster the climb, and the longer the distance needed for takeoff and landing. Fewer air molecules in a given air volume of air also result in reduced propeller efficiency and therefore reduced net thrust. All of these factors can lead to an accident if the poor performance has not been anticipated. 3, density altitude in feet equal pressure altitude in feet plus 120 times OAT minus ISA temperature. So pressure altitude is determined by setting the altimeter at 29.92 and reading the altitude indicated on the altimeter. OAT stands for outside air temperature in degrees Celsius. ISA stands for standard temperature in degrees Celsius. Keep in mind that the standard temperature is 15 degrees Celsius, but only at sea level. It decreases about 2 degrees Celsius per 1,000 feet of altitude above sea level. The standard temperature at 7,000 feet MSL therefore is only 1 degree Celsius. For example, the density altitude at an airport 7,000 feet above sea level with a temperature of 18 degrees Celsius and a pressure altitude of 7,000 would be calculated as follows. 18 minus 1 equals 17. 17 times 120 equals 2,040. 2,040 plus 7,000 equals 9,040 feet density altitude. This means that the aircraft will perform, as it were, at 9,040 feet. While I agree with the experienced pilots who will say that pilots should already be familiar with density altitude and its implications for aircraft performance, why not provide some extra reminders that might save a few lives along the way? There are certainly other avenues for the board to follow to help better educate inbound pilots about mountain flying conditions. I have just offered a few ideas here, but I hope that you will all explore the myriad ways in which you and the supporting agencies may help pilots be safer when they fly into Truckee in the future. The next comment is from David Cianci. I'd like to submit my comment about the recent plane crash that came very close to major property destruction and loss of life of people on the ground. The plane crashed directly across the golf course from my house. I understand the plane traffic is directed to not fly directly over residential areas, but the jet traffic in particular has increased significantly in the past 1 to 2 years directly over our neighborhood. We used to call the airport and alert them to low-flying aircraft over the neighborhood, but lately there have been way too many to report. The jets taking off in particular do a very poor job of avoiding this area. My understanding is that pilots are supposed to fly along 267 after takeoff, not over the residential neighborhood around the golf course. We really lucked out this time, averting major property damage and additional loss of life, but can't count on being that lucky in the future. The airport needs to find a way to prevent planes, particularly jets, from flying over residential neighborhoods. The next comment is from Susie Rose. We as a community got incredibly lucky in so many ways. Given the plane's location when its trouble began, the plane went down in the one spot that it possibly could have where there was no houses or people. Emergency firefighting crews happened to be passing by on Highway 267 at just the right time. Truckee's firefighting crew was not elsewhere occupied and was able to join them very soon. There was little to no wind, which allowed time for the firefighters to put out the flames before any neighboring houses caught fire. The driver of a bus with children aboard was going slow enough, and the driver was quick thinking enough that he was able to slam on the brakes and avoid having the bus consumed by flames of the plane crash. We cannot, as a community, count on luck to prevent loss of life and property. The airport must take action to make sure that the planes are not flying low over residential neighborhoods. Jets are a particular concern, as a jet crash has a higher likelihood of causing significant damage than does a small propeller plane. My understanding is that the airport encourages planes to avoid flying My understanding is that the airport encourages planes to avoid flying directly over residential areas. In practice, this does not seem to deter planes, especially jets, from flying over Ponderosa Fairway Estates neighborhood where I live. The airport says that it encourages pilots to fly along highways, but instead many planes seem to cut the corner and fly directly over our neighborhood, often at very low altitudes. The jet traffic in particular has increased significantly this summer to the point where I've given up on filing a noise complaint when a jet flies particularly low and loud over our neighborhood, because it happens all the time. It is clear that the airport's strategy of, quote, suggesting and encouraging pilots to avoid residential neighborhoods is not working. For the safety of our community, the airport needs to find a new approach that will prevent planes, particularly jets, from flying over neighborhoods. As airport traffic continues to increase, it brings with it pilots lacking experience in flying in conditions unique to Truckee, including the high altitude, which means the likelihood of accidents will continue to increase in our area. The airport must make take swift action to keep Truckee residents and homes safe from the effects of such accidents. We can't rely on luck to ensure the safety of our community. The next one is Carly Both. I would like to submit a comment regarding the recent plane crash behind my house that has left me with PTSD when I hear an airplane flying overhead. When I first moved into the neighborhood, the jets and planes flying over disrupted backyard barbecues and were annoying noise pollution. But after the traumatizing crash this week, this annoyance for me has turned into a question of neighborhood safety and fear that something like this could happen again. I understand that pilots are recommended to fly along 267, not over residential neighborhoods, but that does not seem to be happening. As I'm hearing planes over my house again today, I'm constantly reminded of the loud boom of the exploding jet in my backyard and the forest fire that I was sure would result in a neighborhood evacuation that left me shaking and almost in tears. Thanks to minimal wind and firefighters quickly to the scene, that was not the case. The airport needs to find a better way to enforce a safer flight path that doesn't put local residents at risk. The next comment is from Kevin Hickey. I am writing today to express my deep concern about the recent plane crash, but more importantly, the effects airport operations have had on our community at large over the past decade and more. Like many important issues, it often takes a tragedy or near tragedy for any action to be taken. In my 20 years living in the area, I have seen the airport grow and become more and more of a nuisance to more and more communities, not just those of us that live closer to the airport. The proliferation of large and loud jets has become unbearable. Perhaps this most recent accident will spur some change. This plane was frighteningly close to hitting a school bus full of children. We seem to be at a clear pivot point, and now is the time for the board to take action to restrict growth and to find a more sustainable path for the Truckee community. The growth in the airport has proceeded unabated for many years and is abundantly clear that the community is not the main concern of the airport or the board of directors. We have seen efforts along these lines in recent years. What results have they actually produced? More and more jets, more and more accidents. The airport is surrounded by neighborhoods. The airport has clearly outgrown, much too large and much too busy for a small town. I implore you to take action immediately. Can anybody on the phone ask a question? I'm not done yet. One moment, please. The next email is from Katie Hickey. To whom it may concern, we live on Martis Drive and have been residents since 2006. On Monday, July 26, after driving down Reynolds Way, I was walking into my house, husband and two small children, when we heard a plane crash. Since we've been waiting for this to happen, I just knew what it was. My heart aches for the passengers, children on the bus, the houses on Reynolds, and the kids who saw the plane fall out of the sky at Camp Truckee. Every witness and our community at large. My heart is angered for the lack of control Truckee has over the increase of jets landing over our neighborhoods, playgrounds, trails, and golf courses. In my 15 years living on Martis Drive and over 20 years in the area, the airport has grown what feels like 200%. We used to be involved in issuing complaints and attending meetings. After the 5 to 7 years of doing so, was disheartened when the only result was increased flight traffic and larger planes flying earlier and later in the day. I utterly felt unheard and useless in that fight. I watched my neighbors fight this fight for 20 years before me. I pray this accident will be the wake-up call to the airport and the airport board to limit growth and to prioritize the safety of the community. There were countless miracles that happened Monday that did not make this an absolute tragedy to our community. The next accident is imminent. I implore you to take action and make change. The next comment is from Jeff, I'm having a hard one, Schwerberger. Hello, I would like to voice my deep concern regarding low-flying aircraft over my home on Royal Way, on the Bluff in Glenshire. We have frequent encounters with aircraft making their final approach within a few feet directly over our house, landing at the Truckee Tahoe airport. At times we can see the pilot and passengers. That is how dangerously close they are to our home and others. With the recent aircraft crash fatalities in Truckee, our concern has grown, so has the air traffic. We realize that a runway is shut down for construction. However, we would appreciate it if there was more regard for the safety of my family and others living in the Glenshire area. It would be a simple fix by approaching over the old ice ponds dam instead of lining up directly over our homes. I'll be filing a complaint with the FAA, and we have downloaded an app that gives us the aircraft identification, type, and orientation and origination. It is obviously not the talent of the pilots or reliability of the aircraft that has avoided large loss of life and property. It has been sheer luck. Eventually, an avoidable accident will occur and innocent people will die. With a simple adjustment to the approach, this situation can be easily remedied. And then Sarah Strader. I am sitting here on Martis Drive watching the comments being read during the board meeting, and as people are complaining about the jets flying too low over our homes, a jet flies low overhead. I was home during the crash. I now physically duck every time a plane comes in. My heart goes up and I listen to see if it is going to make it safely pass. You need to find a solution to keep these jets out of the skies directly over us. Please listen. And lastly, Ruth Miller. The public comment today has been overwhelming. This crash could have been so much worse. I concur with the others' comments that the airport needs to reevaluate the volume and the type of aircraft it supports, and hope the board is open to making significant changes before another incident occurs. That is all I have right now.
Looks like we have.
It's cell phone.
There was someone on cell phone as well.
So do we have a?
And I purchased my home on Martis Drive in July of 1991, so that was 30 years ago. And I had not planned on speaking, so I apologize for any lack of thought I have. But when I purchased my home, I knew I was in the airport flight path. And small planes, approximately 20 or 30, would be flying in and out daily. I had no idea, honestly. Years later, 400 plus flights a day would be happening, and the jets flying over would be so large they would need 2 pilots. I think my number one thing, you guys, I know you can't do a lot right away, but I really want to know what the district is going to do to ensure that the flights fly in and out over the bypass and not our homes. When I looked out and saw runway 11, which I'm ashamed that I never paid attention all these 30 years, it seems like they have to make a left to go into our neighborhood, but if they just went straight across the bypass, they could, if anything happened, it would be safer for our neighborhood and the whole town. So that's really my main thing. And I know you can't answer questions, but I really would like to see that happen first until we can do further controls. A few things. About a month ago, I was out on our driveway and with our neighbors, and while landing, this plane jet flew so low over my house that I could see his face. And again, I've been here 30 years, I've never seen that. Then again this morning, 6:25 a.m., I thought the runway was closed. I thought that we are asking these pilots not to fly before 7 a.m. and also not fly directly over our homes, fly over the bypass. Whoever this pilot was, I don't know if you guys agreed to what he was doing, I'm sure you did, but he just respected everything. Our neighborhood's traumatized, and he disrespected every rule that I understand, or not rules, but guidelines that you guys are asking. So I'm just curious what we can do to enforce these, if there's anything we can do. And I know many of you board members personally, I know you have children you love very much, and I respect you and I appreciate you, and I don't think you're doing anything but really, really trying to help our community, because I know most of you. So I really think together we can make some changes to make our town and our neighborhoods safer. So that's it, thanks.
Thank you.
Sarah Kane from Zoom.
Hi, hopefully you can hear me. I'm at work. I just want to contribute my 2 cents. I was home during the crash with my toddler, saw the fireball. You know, it seems like a lot of the response that our neighborhood gets when we make complaints or try to get results over the years have been that the airport doesn't control our airspace, the airport can't do anything, it's all the FAA. Well, what can the airport do? I like the guy's suggestion about shortening the runway so that the size of the planes are smaller. And 10 years ago, in the 2010 airport master plan meeting, one of the major suggestions was to add a new runway between runway 20 and runway 29, and it was voted as too expensive. Well, how about now? Can we reevaluate that? It would put all the airplanes, the big airplanes, out of our stampede. It seems so much safer than having them crash land in our backyards. So that's my comment.
Thank you. Do we have any other live comment? Zoom comment or email comment? Okay. You're on, Kevin.
Well, no, I just want to thank everybody for all these great comments, and we are open to
one additional comment from the audience, if you want to speak.
Hi, everybody. My name's Kevin Hickey. My comments were read earlier because I didn't know I was going to be here. I know you guys are all really good people, and you're here because you love this community like we do. But I think you've heard a lot today, and it's all been down the same kind of road. Enough is enough. And how much more can this town handle? It's not just I live on Martis Drive myself, so, and I was aware I was buying a house near the airport. But like everyone else, it's grown to unbearable levels. And it's not just our neighborhoods, it's almost all the neighborhoods now. Anyways, my comments were already read, but I've been sitting here and I've been looking at the mission statement kind of the whole time I've been here. And that doesn't really jive. I don't see it. I know that the airport does a lot for the community, but I'm wondering what local needs are met. And I don't see the airport striving to have a low impact on its neighbors. All it's done is grown and grown and grown and grown for a really long time. So I hope action will happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one more comment via Zoom. Scott on Reynolds Way has his hand raised.
He's muted. He's unmuted.
Yes.
His connection is poor.
Yeah, Scott, we can't hear you.
Yeah.
We don't have good cell service on that road yet either.
I know what he was going to say.
Okay. Yeah. I think we all.
We all know what he was going to say.
There we go. Can you hear me now? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay, my internet's not so great, so I hope you can hear me. I had actually several questions for Kevin and Hardy, and I'll try to go slow, so maybe you could answer them now. It might be too early. To both of you, can you consider not using runway 11 for a while? I agree with some of the comments that we started using that runway right away, and I think this morning at 6 o'clock or 6:30, a plane took off from 29. And another question, did that aircraft plan to fuel in Truckee? Question. And can you please reconsider the air show on 9/11, the 20-year anniversary? And I agree that the crash happened in a residential area. It was not what was said in the media, although those few trees saved me. Have many planes flying directly over house and reported them to Dave in the past, and he's worked with me. Another question, and was it true that the aircraft was upside down as reported by witnesses? I think that's I watched last night from my porch. Again, I'm 30 feet away from the crash site and parts are all over my yard. The body recovery until 11 last night, 11 p.m. and this morning. The FBI did a great job, but it was a terrible sight, total destruction. And my final question is, should the tower have offered that aircraft type for runway 29? When you listen to the tape, you hear runway 11 and then 29. Is that aircraft qualified under those conditions? I don't know if they call it a circle approach, approved for that.
No.
And that's it. Thank you. Go ahead. I'll unmute.
Did you want to answer any of those at least?
Kevin? Whatever.
Yeah.
You guys want to answer those?
Sure. So,
No.
think Rick had something he wanted to say?
It was a miracle this wasn't worse. An absolute miracle. That school bus, the houses. I knew 3 of the people on that plane. They lived at London. I knew one of them really well. I'm sorry. It's changed my thinking on a few things, and you'll hear them in my votes. I'm sorry.
David?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanks to everybody for sticking with us on this and for the comments. I'm not going to address anything specific, but I did want to address an overarching theme here. I know all of the people on this board well. I know everybody here from this airport, particularly the people who are in this room. There are not two sides to this. I know you find that hard to believe, but promise me there are not. I have conversations with people about this. We know we are here at least through November of 2022, and then 2 of us are up for re-election at that point in time.
Yeah, I echo Rick's sentiment. It's very, very emotional. I raised my kids here. They spent summers in Regional Park at camps, played baseball. What those kids went through, I can't even imagine. And I think we have to turn this into an opportunity. I think this is a huge wake-up call, and I think everything that was said today needed to be heard. And I think I can speak for the board and staff that we all feel the same way. And I just hope that this opens some communication channels, and that all of you will feel free to come to future board meetings. Feel free to reach out to Hardy and Kevin and all of the staff and to me, because we need to hear this. And it's easy to everybody lives in their little bubble, but we all live in the neighborhoods, and we all have planes flying overhead, and we hear what you're saying. Echoing everything, I would like to mention to everyone that all of our emails are on the website. They're all our names, mary.hetherington@truckeetahoeairport.com. I would like to speak with each of you. I'm not giving my phone number out, but you send me an email with your number, I will call you back. The idea of ACT, this is the new group that is formed. There's been 2 meetings. This is a tremendous opportunity for your voices to be heard by pilots who also attend to ACT. ACAT was created, I was first elected in 2004 with my concerns about the increasing growth. And in 2005, there were 10,000 aircraft operations, and this year there's 35,000. So to tell you all that, yes, in fact, it has grown exponentially. And that accidents have been occurring. And I am going to ask staff with board concurrence that we have our safety officer compile a list. I have the list that goes back to 91, and the FAA stuff I have that goes back to 82. And I would like to see, this is not a baby airport. And we need to have that information, and we need to have that out in the Connected magazine. We need to have that out in the Sierra Sun. People need to know that their decisions to come here have an impact on this entire region. So, and having been on the airport board now for 14 and a half years, I was off for 2 years and decided to rerun in 18. The FAA is an 8,000-pound gorilla. It's not a 400-pound gorilla. It is a big criteria of what we can and can't do. But there are options, and there has to be the will of the board to spend the money and the culture of the airport to say, yes, we will do this. So I'm reaching out to you and to the people who've called in and texted to say, please reach out to me, because I have a lot of this history. I'm willing to talk to you, and I do believe there needs to be a change. And I've pushed for it for many years, as staff knows. Thank you. Thank you.
Can I just add to what Mary was saying? TruckeeTahoeAirport.com/ACT, ACT. This is the forum that Mary's talked about, that this board approved to increase our community communications. Please go to that link and sign up and join us every month so that we can have these dialogues instead of just the formality of a board meeting.
Yeah, they're a little more informal. The next one's on August 11th, and we're going to change that topic a little bit to mirror some of the sentiment and comments. But one of the things we were going to cover in that meeting is, what are these FAA regulations we keep talking about, and why are they a problem, or why are they restricting and what are some solutions. And so we'll spend some time on that, and it'll be a little simpler version of the meeting we had a month ago where we were talking about air traffic control, but we would love to have more community participation in that forum and get your feedback in those meetings.
Is that an in-person meeting?
No, it's virtual. So it's a Zoom meeting, and you can attend one or all of them, as many as you want, but it's a virtual meeting.
Do we have any other Zoom, any other in-person comments, and any other email? No, okay. Well, Kevin, where do we go from here?
So I don't want everyone to leave, I mean, obviously, I'm very grateful that within 3 days of this incident, we're able to get together and talk. That was the one thing that we really wanted to make sure happened, and I appreciate the board being able to set this meeting up, and this is the first time this group has been together in a year and a half, together. So we have a lot of information that we're combing through, and we will have information and start to formulate solutions that we would like to formulate with all of you as part of that process. So stay tuned with us. Again, that ACT form is a great way for us to get information, so how to contact you. Again, grab myself or Hardy's card in the back, and we'll be in touch, and there'll be a lot more to come on this.
I would mention, please get in touch with us, because we are assembling grief counseling and crisis response for everybody in your neighborhood, and I've talked to people in the neighborhood. So please reach out so we can include you in that circle of planning.
I'd like us to push grief counseling. I'd like you to push, I don't know how you can get internet to these people. I don't know how we can help, but we ought to do everything we can to help the people in that neighborhood.
Understood.
Everything.
Agree.
You know, when the kids could not access, some homeowners didn't have internet for school, they went and parked a school bus there. That became a hotspot for that community. So I don't know that the bus can do it, or if we can take an airport vehicle with a hotspot so people can do that.
That'd be amazing.
Great idea.
I work from home, please.
Yeah, we'll get, we've got a very talented IT person who made this happen within about 45 minutes, and we'll have him start helping us figure that out.
One of our neighbors indicated that they had talked to Suddenly, and they said until the FAA had done their investigation, they couldn't get in there to repair our line. We were able to get power by splicing into the old corporation yard. That's how we got power that evening about 9:30. It seemed like the whole PUD was down our street, you know? But it would have been great if Suddenlink was there. I haven't seen any trucks at all. We can't get through to anybody live unless they're in Arizona or Tennessee. And they don't know what's going on here.
Yeah.
So it would be much appreciated to get our internet back and running.
And this might be a really stupid comment, but is there, I mean, it sounds to me like there's not a lot you guys can really do because of you have to follow the federal regulations, and they just don't really, is there any way, like, this might seem so stupid, but like, should we talk to our Congress people about changing? I mean, why can't there be different regulations for different sizes of airports? I don't understand why we would have to follow the same regulations as a bigger airport. It just doesn't make sense to me. So let's change the FAA regulations if that's what it takes. Like, I know that sounds like a laughable thing, but like, is that a congressperson thing?
It's not laughable, and there's a lot of airports, a lot of communities that are working towards different measures to do that in highly impacted noise. And we should meet and talk about that. I can kind of tell you some of those things that are happening, and that's a great direction to go. And there are certain things that are happening within there, within that realm.
Because then maybe you guys could fulfill your mission statement.
Well, we have a mission statement. It doesn't mean we've done it. It means that's what we're aspiring to do.
I know, but
So,
it doesn't sound like it's going to happen.
Well,
Change from the,
Can you share with us?
until we actually see the change.
we're
It's hard to believe.
yes.
Kevin, you just said there's a lot of other stuff happening, you know, can
you share that with us? Is there a place you guys can post that so we can see like?
Yeah.
Like I've heard of places like Santa Monica, right? They got their airport.
Yeah, and that's, so the ACT meeting, we're gonna go into this, sorry.
There's a lot on the, I was just gonna mention, there's a tremendous amount of information on our website, and I'm happy to walk through the website. I don't wanna point people to the website because some of the information is really technical and it's better to talk about in person. There's some of the initiatives we're working on. Flight procedure updates and surveillance are on this agenda, the next agenda. So we're going to be talking about flight procedures. Literally, we're talking about where the airplanes will fly, what work we're doing to analyze the path and what sense that makes for our community. That's on our next agenda in a minute. So we've done work for pretty significantly the last 5 or 6 years about that, but I'm happy to meet with you in person and sit around a table and describe to you what we're doing and get your thoughts and feedback and insight. Because it's too much to talk about in one sitting. It's also probably too much to digest on a single website visit. But there's more resources available to you, and they're right here. They're on the side of the table that we can work with you to get that information out.
And then I was just gonna add, in our ACT meeting on the August 11th, and I'm happy to talk about it sooner than then, we'll cover, what some of these noise abatement measures and operational control, some of these things that are happening. I can talk to you more about what's happened in Santa Monica, what's happened in East Hampton, some of those places, and just kind of explain what those communities went through and where they ended up. None of those are resolved, but I can give information on those. But in that ACT forum on the 11th, we'll dive into that in high level of detail.
And in terms of the mission statement, that's actually on the next agenda.
Yeah, we have that on the agenda,
17,
actually.
So we're actually discussing that, and a piece of that is pushing for safety for the neighborhoods. It came up after that last accident.
I had a quick question. I may have been misinterpreted the comment.
Was that Mary talking right there? Was that you, Mary, saying that?
Yes.
I thought so. Thank you.
I may have misinterpreted the comment when you said that, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know anything about this, but because we pay tax dollars, the airport is funded by tax revenue. The FAA then regulates it. Is that correct? It doesn't.
I can give a brief. So when an airport takes federal funds, and just about all of them do, there's just a small handful of private airports in the United States. We agree, and we agreed to this going back 50 years ago, to what are called grant assurances. There's 39 of them, and I can get you copies of them. And those 39 grant assurances tell us what we are obligated to do as we take federal funding. We are obligated to all of those grant assurances for 20 years. When you stop taking federal funds, that 20-year clock starts, and you run that through East Hampton, Santa Monica. That's what those communities did 20 years ago. At any time, if a board takes federal funds during that 20-year period, that clock starts again, starts over. And so you have to have a community that is going to spend 20 years maintaining the facility per those grant assurances without taking federal funds. And that's what there's maybe 5 airports right now that are in the process of doing that. So that's what we're obligated to do. And I can give you a copy of those grant assurances and what we're obligated to try and do. But yeah.
Well, that, to me, the solution for me would be to start that 20-year clock. All right, I plan to be in my home that long and to see some real change happening that way.
I'm not sure Megan's going to stay that long.
I don't know if I'm going to see till next weekend.
And Colin, as Kevin was alluding to, the problem with that as a strategy is that at 19 years and 11 months, which is probably going to be a very different board, they can accept $1 from the FAA. We can't force a future board from not doing this. So we've got to find, even though that seems like a really clear path toward control of the airport, we actually need to find stuff that happens now that solves these problems now, not in 20 years, because it's very unlikely that 20-year clock is going to continue on without getting reset by a future board.
The property tax has got nothing to do with the FAA. It's this taxiway A here. We got $4 million this year from the FAA. That's what counts on the assurances. The property tax, we have used money from the property tax to build a tower, do ADSB, the ground system with satellite transponder. So we've used some property tax to make the airport, I think, safer. I voted for those. And I voted for a lot of community benefit expenditures from that property tax. But property tax and the FAA really aren't related.
So does this airport take about 4 million every year? Does that change?
No, it fluctuates. It's probably on average about $1 million a year, but some years it's nothing. Next year, we're not receiving any funds, but this year we had $400,000 because it varies, and we have people we work with on that at the FAA that program that out. So, and I'll tell you, and Peter Kirsch of Kaplan, Kirsch and Rockwell, that's our law firm that helps us with this aviation legal counsel. We can talk with him more about some of these things, and he can give us really good insight as he's seen this work across the country. He will tell you many airports have tried the don't take the funding. And 2/3 of all airports are owned by cities and counties. And at some point in that 20-year period, things change and they take the money and then it starts over. And there's only been a few that have been successful. But I want to dive into this at a higher level in our ACT meeting and give you some more concrete examples and provide some more information, and we can talk through and gain better understanding over some of those things, if that's okay.
Okay. Do we have any last minute comments from the public? All right, then
I'd like to move that we close this meeting and take a brief break and start the next meeting. That's my motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you so much for coming tonight. I'm going to do another meeting a little bit later this month. Unless you decide when you get that modification that any of those are easy. The town would like to know about the bioenergy thing, but we could do that in 2 weeks. There's no rush on that. None of those things are necessary right now.
I do.
What a surprise.
Thank you. I mean, don't you want to pay the town first thing?
I do.
Easy, do it. But are we dropping everything? I say we do easy. Well, okay, tell me now what's easy.
Walker's is easy.
Give a number, I'll throw it. Will the four get down?
That's good, 17.
Tab 14's easy, tab 15's easy.
Don't get agenda item tab mixed up though. Make sure you're.
Okay, agenda 16, agenda 17's easy. The tab 13, we're gonna be doing that. Finance, are we doing that or not?
We don't need to do that. In my opinion.
Great.
Just shove your crabs over here. See where you are, you cute. Okay.
We're not doing any of those things. Oh. Yeah. Those are too easy.
Yes. After consent, I would go ahead and go right to Hardy's. And Hardy, all you got to do is that's the jump plate.
13.
Yeah.
All right, let's call our meeting to order.
Yeah, this is a new meeting. So,
New meeting.
yeah.
Call it to order and we may as well do a pledge. Let's do that. I did call it to order.
We're actually glad.
Yeah, I was like, I'm used to say, woo, yeah.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call?
All right, Vice President Diamond.
Here.
Director Hetherington.
Here.
President Odette.
Here.
Director Rolfe.
Here.
And Director Stevens.
Here!
Okay, then we have modification of agenda. The board president reserves the right to modify the agenda in order to most effectively process the agenda items. They may be taken out of order, combined for consideration, etc. And so I think we're going to push quite a few things off, run with the consent agenda. Item number 13 will be next. Then we'll go to number 9, 14, 15, 16, and 17. Push the rest to a meeting that we will do a special meeting in a couple weeks.
We're not doing 15.
Oh, we're not doing 15. Okay, not doing 15. Everybody good with that? Okay.
Yes.
Then let's, I guess the consent agenda, all we need is a motion to approve.
I move we approve the consent agenda, consent items 1 through 7.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
President Odette, I apologize. This was agendized as a teleconference meeting, so we do need a roll call vote even though all 5 of you are in the same room.
I knew he was going to.
Okay, and I didn't ask.
Such a Josh.
Josh.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry. Yeah.
That's a compliment.
Doing your job.
Yes, thank you, Josh. Vice President Diamond.
Yes.
Director Hetherington.
Yes.
President Odette.
Yes.
Director Rolfe.
Yes.
Director Stevens.
Yes.
Motion carries, thank you. Let's jump into item number 13. Artie?
Thank you, Chair Odette, members of the board and public. The Aviation Community Services team reports in front of you. You've all had a chance to review it, so I'm not going to dig into it in great detail. I did want to talk a little bit about 2 items. Number 2, monthly flight procedures update. We had the flight tech engineering team here at the Truckee Tahoe Airport to talk with the pilot group, start outlining the the work and the forward progress on our flight procedures initiative, and that initiative, just to summarize, is creating safe flight paths that reduce community noise and annoyance, enhance safety into and out of the airport. So I'm happy to kick that project off. It's been underway for about 2.5 years, and so we're starting the material portions of that work. We just invite the board and any of the public people to give their insight, flight procedures at the Truckee Tahoe Airport. It's on our website. As we get a little bit further down the road, we'll have widespread public outreach regarding that process and that initiative, so people can see it on our website and any of the collateral we put out in the community to be a part of that process and have input. The next item is item number, let's see, it is the item number 9, the skydive supercharger aircraft and some of the annoyance issues we're facing with our skydiving operator. The previous aircraft had a supercharger modification that was supported by the Airport Community Advisory Team. It worked really well. We had a great reduction in community noise and annoyance at the beginning of this year. That aircraft had a failure of the engine, and so that turbocharger is not part of the aircraft operation at this point, and the replacement aircraft has created a lot of noise and annoyance, particularly a few Sundays ago. David Banquest and myself were on and off the phone all day, looking at routes and working to try and further reduce the impact from that operation. But we want to put this on the agenda today because we understand that it's creating significant annoyance for the community and the region with the operation. Happy to talk with the board and answer any questions you may have. There's suggestions in the staff report about how to handle the absence of the supercharger being part of the aircraft operation for this season. And you can read those, and our staff is proceeding, having talked with Josh about the agreement with that leaseholder. So here to answer any questions on the operation for skydiving or anything about the supercharger modification.
You guys want to go across the board, but have any comments, thoughts, questions? Rick, no? David?
I just have a question about going back to the agreement that Skydive Truckee signed with ACAT. Are they in compliance with that with regard to no longer using the supercharger?
Yes and no. The supercharger should be used, but if it's not used, they have to repay us for the time that it wasn't used. So incrementally speaking, they owe the district approximately $2,800 for the fact that the supercharger isn't being used. They're not in total breach of the agreement, but depending on how the board wants to proceed, we can work with council to understand that agreement and take a different course of action. But right now, the staff report recommends sending a bill for $2,800 for the lack of use of that supercharger.
Just a follow-up question. If I recall, we spent over $30,000 to have this installed. How did we get so low so quick?
$28,000
plus installation.
No, it was including installation.
Oh, that was okay.
Yeah, $28,000, simple interest at 4% on a 10-year note. So that's where the $28,000 and $2,800 a year come in.
I guess I would like to know how many operations they did in 19 and 20 and 21, how many they've done so far. Because in 19, I think they were just getting started, they were late in the year. So when we say it made this big change, I don't think they were a significant element in our environment at that point. So when we say that, we need to couch it in terms of actual operations. In terms of this June, 12% of our June calls were associated with that when you run the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
That's significant. I got to experience it for 20 minutes straight, probably 3 or 4 times. It is awful. And for $1,500, $1,510 is how much they pay us on an annual. No, that's how much they, for the lease. That's how much they pay to operate here. That's in the budget.
Okay.
So, you know, they're paying us $1,510 and we're getting how many phone calls? And I'm wondering if having the advertisement for them in the connected newspaper caused more people to use it this year, which then in turn caused significant more overflights because they start early and they go all day. And the signage in Martis Valley for them and for Soar Truckee, is that on our property or is that on the Ford property?
That is in the Placer County right of way.
It's in the right of way.
Yeah, they applied for a Placer County right of way use permit.
Because I know people who were familiar with the Martis Valley visual, you know, the whole general plan for that area, and it all talked about maintaining the view shed without signage. And so I would ask staff to look into that because I'm not sure that that signage should be out there if in fact their general plan says open view shed.
How can we get these people to act better?
Well, so I think maybe, so Hardy's got his presentation, and then I guess clarifying questions from the board would be good. There's a lot of public comment, I think, that we'll take, and then I think that's a great time to start answering that question. Are you okay with that? Perfect. Okay. Because I think the clarifying questions will help, and I'm thinking that the operators may be on this call and maybe could answer some of those, but as you know, we as staff put a lot of thought into this too, but maybe go that direction.
I have no further presentation on this item, except that what I put into the staff report. I will say that we've worked closely with Skydive Truckee Tahoe since their inception here, and I do agree with Director Hetherington that obviously the operations are growing every year, so the business is growing, there's more operations, which is compounding the situation. The aircraft is quite unique and has that really unique high-pitched supersonic prop that makes a lot of annoyance. And so the combination of the increase in business and the use of the replacement plane, I think, is taken it to a whole new level. I met directly with the operator several times, talked to him on the phone several times. I do believe he's invested in our community in creating sustainable business for himself, but at the same time, our community and the airport are what we're here to talk about today. And so welcome any insight and thoughts you may have, and happy to support the board in that.
Okay, well, I think then we should open it up to public comment.
I have one public comment from Eric Premack via Zoom.
Eric?
Yeah, hello. One concern that I have regarding a lot of the arrangements like this are whether we have adequate liability insurance from these operators. Obviously, the danger here is quite serious during high fire season. Raised this issue some years ago when the agreement was originally penned with this organization, and I think we need to take a hard look at the minimum liability coverage of all of the folks who operate in and out of the airport to the extent that we're allowed to do so under the FAA grant assurances. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other Zoom public comment?
Yeah, I do. So this particular operator is not a good citizen. It is so very loud over all of our properties, and they don't bring anything to the community at all. So that's my yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else? I'm not seeing any others via Zoom. How about email or text?
I have no written public comment.
Okay, well.
All right, well, maybe.
We have some board comments?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to know if Soar Truckee is going to speak to us. Pardon me? Skydive, sorry.
Are they, do we know if they're on the?
Mike's on the call, I believe. Skydive Truckee Tahoe, if you're on the call and would like to comment, please unmute yourself and comment.
Okay.
All right, so just a couple thoughts. Oh, sorry, I want to let the board ask questions first, and I have a few things.
Rick, do you have any questions?
These guys are really operating as a nuisance to this community. And is there anything we can do to get them to operate better or punish them? Maybe that's not the right word,
It's
but
not the
that,
right word, but
change their deal.
change, yeah. So, Hardy and I, and staff, and you're going to see, and correct me if I'm wrong, David Van Quest, a lot more comments in July for the skydive. How many? Where do you think we're at in July on noise?
30 so far.
Just in 1 month, that one operator. The actual physical activity of skydiving is very quiet. The skydivers floating to the ground is not the problem. That we've worked with the tower, worked with operators, and it can be done very safely. As I look at this, this is an airplane, an equipment problem, and not necessarily whether or not the business is operating, should or shouldn't be operating. We as an airport have to provide opportunities for all bona fide recognized aeronautical uses that want to operate at the airport that can meet our minimum standards. The FAA looks at a skydiver the same way as they look at somebody flying around in their Cessna 172. They both have equal rights according to the FAA. Where I think we do have an opportunity is to talk to this operator and indicate that the type of equipment they're using is not sustainable, and we as an airport cannot continue to entertain providing them a commercial operating permit until they provide appropriate equipment that will be able to operate in our community without causing a public nuisance the way it is. There are aircraft out there that can do it and can get those skydivers up there and are very quiet.
Kevin, have we not already done this?
So I'm just saying we did this with the turbocharger, but here's my concern. So they fixed the turbocharger, got that plane back, and then they get another plane with a hypersonic prop because or two or three because of how much activity they have, and so I'm not seeing right now. I guess what I'm telling the board is I think it's time for us to explore whether or not it's appropriate to have them operating under a commercial operating permit issued by this airport. I think that'll take a little bit of legal review and involving legal counsel. But I think it's time for them to meet us halfway. I mean, we're not saying you can't operate here. We're just saying the way you're operating here is not sustainable for our community. And it's far and wide. I mean, we've not seen, and correct me again if I'm wrong, David, we've not seen a single operator create this kind of a nuisance that I can tell, at least in the 11 years I've been here. So, and I don't mean to be harsh on them, but this is a big deal.
I have a question, and it
Yeah.
leads into one of my goals being the PMCDs. Isn't the purpose of the PMCDs that it's outlined that they have an aircraft that can fulfill certain decibels? And why wasn't that?
So,
I'm looking at Hardy because I know he's the PMCD king. And
Yeah.
and I know that I've spent a lot of time in them, and that's where I'm asking that we as a board need to have a special workshop so everybody is familiar with what the PMCDs, because there's things we agree to give, and there's things that the SASO agrees to give to us.
Yeah, unfortunately, discrimination on the type or the amount of noise that comes out of an aircraft is not allowed in the FAA process through the PMCDs. There are other limitations that you can put on the operator.
A climb rate?
We can talk to Peter Kirsch, but it's probably doubtful. As Kevin was talking about, there may be other remedies available to us we can look into, but in the I guess making a modification to the PMCD would not accommodate each
Yeah,
aircraft type.
Agree, and the aircraft type gets to be tricky, because we don't regulate the types of aircraft that can use the airport as far as we design the airport a specific way, and then the FAA says what kind of aircraft can use what we've designed.
Basically, what I'm hearing is, we have these PMCDs, but we have no control through them. And the whole idea of the PMCDs was to get control on our SASOs.
Yeah.
I sat through that week conference with you, party, and that was what I remember us being told, that this gives us opportunities to define criteria for any SASO on the field. And now I'm hearing
There are some other administrative types, so like the amount of capital investment you can change. You can change the plant and the physical structure, the need for office buildings, receptionist staff, the staffing levels, the time of day operation, the rates, the safety certification. So there's a lot of control in the PMCDs that would allow, but it is discretionary, and I'm not saying that this will happen, but people can challenge those, and they can say that this is unfairly limiting to, access to the airfield, but it's something we could do.
I guess that's what I'm saying, is I would like to, pick that up and move that forward of, pursuing.
Kevin, I think you need to be as tough as you can to get these guys to straighten up and fly right, whatever that means.
I want to pursue that more aggressively, I guess is what I'm saying, after what we've experienced this summer, and kind of what I consider a lack of an effort to find alternatives that are even how they operate the aircraft that could be. And what they will say is that we're doing everything you've asked us to do. It doesn't matter where we put that airplane, it generates noise comments. And we've tried different things with our airspace to move that tow plane around, or the jump plane around different places, and it generates comments everywhere because it's super loud, and there's two of them, and they interchange back and forth. And I just don't think those planes are appropriate and will work in this environment, and I think we need to pursue that at a higher level. So I guess what I'm telling you is that's what I plan on doing, unless anyone on the board tells me not to.
Kevin, what drives me crazy about this is I remember being in this room when they came before ACAT asking for that money, and we talked about what kind of financial shape they were in, and at the time I was told by them they were virtually bankrupt because they had no money to contribute to this entire thing. But if they did this, it was going to reduce the impact on the community, and that was so important to them. And then the engine fails, and all of a sudden I'm hearing they're doing lots of runs and they're doing super well, but somehow that's not it. The noise and an issue is not such a priority anymore. One could almost make the argument that when they had no money, they did the best they could, and now if they're doing well, they're running 2 airplanes and they're still not able to either fix the other airplane or do something to the aircraft that they're using now to make them quieter?
Articulating my frustration too.
Okay, so I've got 2 questions. One is, what action do you need from this board to resolve the financial conditions so that they are in compliance with the agreement that we had with them on ACAT? And number 2, can you say to this board, if it is the will of this board, that we will pull no punches on making the annoyance stop for this community? We had an aircraft crash on Monday, and 50% of the emails I'm getting from people in the community are about the skydive plane.
Yeah.
People are horrified by what happened here on Monday, and yet the skydive plane, I got emails from people last night saying, I'm not going to make a comment about the skydive plane out of respect for the people that died on Monday. I feel it's not respectful. So I feel like we're at this strange disadvantage now because we don't have this community voice here.
I agree with you. I agree with everything you're saying, 100%. And I have talked to lots of people about that plane this week. So the fact that they're not on the call, and we had, an hour and a half long, very important meeting before this, I don't think any of us should take as a lack of interest in what they're hearing every day. So I'm agreeing vigorously with you, and I do feel like, Hardy and I have been working on this, trying to get some movement on this, and we haven't gotten very far with them making changes, and they're not. And so.
So what do you need from us to
I think
change
I've
that?
got it. I think what I'm hearing is there's consensus among the board to pull out all stops to figure out what our options are and to change the way this operator is operating, or essentially pull their commercial operating permit.
Kevin, can I jump in for a second?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think we did get the direction we needed from the board on this. It isn't a discussion or an action item. So what we can do, and I think the direction we received is we will work to evaluate all options and then bring potential action forward, in the future, which might be an open session or maybe a closed session, depending on the options we pull together.
Which could be, if we do a meeting in a couple of weeks, it could be that soon.
I'd like to know what our options are.
Yeah, and that.
At every level.
Yeah, I will. I have a lot of that. We just need to get a meeting together, and I need to do a little more consulting with Peter Kirsch on that. So
The operator, Mike Swanson, would like to make a comment. He's on the call.
Oh, great.
Wonderful.
Mr. Swanson, you can unmute yourself and comment.
Mike Swanson?
Yeah, right there. Keep asked on mute.
There you go.
Yeah, there.
All right. We there?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right. Yeah, so the problem with the plane was unfortunate, and it happened in the beginning of the season. The problem is getting parts, getting engines built, all of that. I'm in Oshkosh right now, meeting with different builders and trying to figure out a plan forward. We have worked with the airport, I think, very well. We've at the expense changed our flight paths, however it's best for the community. And we used the supercharger, and the supercharger was successful the way that everybody that was working towards it thought that it would be. And unfortunately, that engine blew up, and we are waiting to fix the plane again. Nobody wants to get that plane in the air more than we do. The planes that we're using are taking twice as long to get to altitude, and we're spending twice as much money doing so. And our focus is trying to get into a plane that has the least amount of annoyance. Unfortunately, we're at a point where the business is growing. Soon we're going to have to add a second plane. The only other option is to go the route of a turbine. The increase in price on a turbine compared to two 182s, as anybody that follows the prices of planes, it's quite a bit. But I've been searching in Australia, South America, Africa, all the places that you find the type of used turbine that we're looking for, and so that's kind of where we're at the moment. We apologize about the nuisance, but I think that it's a little harsh coming from the airport that some of the stuff that I'm listening to. I understand people are inflamed. You're getting some complaints. We're an aviation business. And we love Truckee, and we're going to try to reduce our impact whenever possible. And I just hope everybody understands that. I think, we've worked really well with Mark and Hardy and Kevin, and they've been great to work for. And also, the airport, as a side comment, I think that their commitment to safety and everything is so far above anywhere else that I've been. I've traveled all over the world, airport to airport. I've lived on airports all over the country, and I haven't run into an airport that takes safety as seriously as the Truckee Tahoe Airport, and I think that it's a really great thing, and the community, although might not understand, it really is. I mean, they go above and beyond. So I'd just like to say thanks for that.
Mike, a couple questions.
Yes.
So.
Can I comment?
Stand by on that.
Maybe stand by on the comments. There'll be an opportunity to comment in just a second. So, Mike, why can't you I know in some of those aircraft and some of the operators that fly those with those props, you pull the prop back a little bit and you can get rid of that hypersonic or supersonic buzz. I mean, is it just not something that it just won't work doing that, or why do we have to always have it buzzing? I guess that's the question.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the difference is between we have 2 aircraft that we're leasing at the moment, and I'm not sure what the difference is between the 2. The one that's running right now is way louder than the other, and it should be quieter. It's got a 3-blade prop, and it should be quieter, but it's not, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But I'm not a mechanic. I don't understand the differences. My only guess would be maybe it's a difference in exhaust. But we're kind of just in a rock and a hard place. Everybody around the country is busy. Aircraft is hard to find, and we got lucky in finding these 2 aircraft that we're able to use while we build up our own.
Mike, this is David Diamond. I've got a question for you. So, back when you came to ACAT and ACAT voted to give you $28,000 of public funds to put a supercharger on there, and the entire intent of that was to reduce impact on community. And I understand the engine failed, and that's likely nobody's fault. Because of that public participation in the welfare of your business, which presumably has led to the success that you're having now, do you feel any kind of obligation to perhaps reduce operations until you can get an aircraft that's more compatible with the community?
I mean, I think everybody on this call understands business, and Truckee has exploded. It's up 30%. That's not our business's fault. We didn't invite 30% more people to come in and live full time in Truckee. I think everybody's feeling the impact around town with traffic in the grocery stores all over. The list goes on, and we are obviously a piece of that. And when people are frustrated with traffic and they're frustrated with grocery stores, I think all of a sudden that plane noise makes a little more of an impact. And all I can say is that we work closely with the airport. We're trying to do what we can, and I don't know what else to say. I mean, I can't get an airplane tomorrow, and
but you can reduce operations tomorrow. You can reduce your impact on the community by reducing operations.
We've reduced our days by 2 this year. We were running 7 days a week, and we've reduced it by 2. I have, this is a business that supports a bunch of families. And,
no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
So make sure all your comments are directed towards the board, to the board president, and then we can handle them that way, but we can't have conversations back and forth between meeting attendees. So, Mike, do you want to finish your statement, and then we do want to hear the public comment, whoever is commenting, we want to hear that comment after Mike has spoken?
I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, we had a public comment from JR, I believe. JR?
Hello, JR?
Did JR leave us?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So this operation, I think, doesn't even remotely move the needle on the economic impact for Truckee at all. Every time this plane is circling above your house for 15 minutes, they have maybe 2 clients. It's not okay. It's not okay.
Anything further?
And maybe one more question for Mike, Mike Swanson. I also noticed on a Sunday, you had an operation before 7 a.m. on a Sunday?
Yeah.
What are we doing there? And I think the plane lifted off at about. Yeah. I mean, I think it lifted off.
I wasn't there that day.
Okay.
I don't know how, I believe they took off at 7.
It was right before 7.
We follow the noise and abatement procedures and the recommended timings.
But and so it was probably 5 minutes before 7. I guess the point I'm thinking is, I guess that's what we're getting at here, and we want you to have a successful business. I think we all, I feel like we're getting really aggressive with you, but I think what we're trying to say is that to schedule dives at 7 a.m. on a Sunday is unsustainable and a real burden on a lot of people. I mean, that literally is, you have hundreds, if not thousands of people that are hearing that at 7 in the morning on a Sunday. And so we're asking for, first of all, finding an appropriate piece of equipment. I know you're working on that. Because as we've said, the actual activity of skydiving is quiet, except for this aircraft operation. And at least my opinion as the general manager, and the board, also, they direct me, and I'm going to do whatever they tell me to do. But this is an equipment issue that has to be resolved. And if you can resolve the equipment issue, then I think what you're doing could be sustainable and meet our standards. But the way it's operating right now, I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing how it can be done sustainably.
I have a comment for Mr. Swanson. This airport has really kind of supported you, and you give them compliments, but you've become a pariah in the community, and it's got to stop. Or we've also already directed Kevin to look at all of the entire board directed him to look at all options on how to resolve it, including your operating permit. So you need to figure something out.
Any other board comments or questions?
Well, just a neighbor told me that it's just plain rude.
Any others?
Somebody else told me that.
Hey, do we have any more public comment?
Yeah, I'd just like to say, it is beyond annoying. And I mean, this is something we've dealt with for weeks at my home. It's either descending right next to my house, and it sounds like it's accelerating. Kevin tells me it's just the propeller that makes that kind of noise. And then a couple days ago, started doing climbs right above my house. And it's so slow, it takes 10 minutes, you can hear it, before it even starts moving away. And, you know, it's gone, but it's gone since the Monday crash. It's gone from being annoying to being downright terrifying. I wasn't in that neighborhood, but every time I hear that jump plane, I run outside and say, what is that? Oh, right, it's the jump plane. It's triggering all kinds of fear in this neighborhood, in this community. And everybody's on heightened, you know, emotional alert right now. And this is just, it's compounding it. And it just feels like insult to injury.
Hi, can I speak please? This is Jules. I'm one of the co-owners of Skydive Truckee Tahoe.
Yes. Jules Drew.
Thank you. Sorry, we've been unable to communicate at this point because we're home with our children and it's dinner time and bedtime. But just listening to the comments now about the noise, and we were able to listen to a part of what was going on regarding the airplane crash. I mean, I feel like listening to all the people in the community that are in the area around where the crash was, and the Sierra Meadows area and Reynolds Way. I mean, I had never heard so many complaints about the jets and how close they're flying and the fear and the noise. And so that's clearly an issue that the airport's going to have to deal with. But to now be talking about the airplane that we run causing fear in Glenshire and Olympic Heights, I think is kind of just letting the steamroll to a little bit too much of an extent. And we know that the plane is noisy. We want a new plane. If we could afford a new plane, we would buy one tomorrow because it would actually be better for us too. But I feel like there needs to be some acknowledgement here that if you want to try to, you know, pull our permit, our commercial operating permit, because you don't like the noise that our plane makes, I mean, this is potentially going to lead to the shutdown of the entire airport, because you cannot single us out with our noisy plane when there's all members of the community around in different areas that are being equally as affected by the loud jets. And when I hear those jets come in and out of the airport when we're there, I'm like, man, that is some noise compared to what our little droning plane sounds like. So, I mean, I think the airport has a big problem if noise, I mean, obviously the noise is an issue in the community. One Sunday, we were on the runway at 6:59. Other than that, we've been on exactly the flight paths that were dictated to us by the airport. We've done nothing but cooperate. We've done nothing but abide by the fly quiet regulations. And so I feel like this is a very unfair way to single us out as a business. And I think that there's going to be an issue if we're the target and you have all these jets that are making as much noise in different communities. So that's just what I have to say about that. If we could change it, we would. And to respond to the comment that I heard earlier about this not being our livelihood, it is our livelihood. This is our business. So, you know, whoever's listening now and wants to shut us down thinks that we're making tons of money. We're not. We're surviving. So that's just my 2 cents.
So, Jules, if you're just surviving, then how can we expect that you're going to be able to afford an expensive airplane that's going to solve this problem?
We're welcome to all ideas and assistance that we can get. We don't have a solution right now. It's what our goal is, but we do not have a financial solution at this point. So
okay.
we welcome all members of the community and the airport to give us advice, assistance, or any kind of pointers on how we can create that, because we would love it just as much as the community would.
So so it sounds like you're saying that as much as you'd love a new airplane, that it's not a reasonable expectation that you will get one because you don't have the money? Is that fair or not unfair?
I don't think that's exactly what I said. I said that's what we really would like to find out if we could do. At the moment, we do not have a financial plan of a way to afford this aircraft. Our priority would be to get the Cessna running with the supercharger in it, since that is something that we can afford, and it did actually mitigate the noise factor. So that is something that would be our priority. If that's also a huge amount of money that we have to come up with. So, you know, we're not this business that's making a ton of money that we're just trying to figure out like which plane to buy. We are very conscious of the noise effect. Plus, we would like to not have a plane that we have to, you know, fly for such a long time and spend so much money on sending up. So we're looking at all options, but it's not like we have, you know, $1 million sitting in our pocket to go buy a plane.
So the more affordable, or the most affordable option is to get the old airplane fixed. But I believe that Mike mentioned that the business has grown so much that you now need 2 airplanes. So presumably one of the airplanes is going to continue to not be the quieter airplane. Is that true?
Yeah, one of their
apologies on this. You know, this is just as part of the aviation and community services report, and not a discussion item on itself. So we're getting a little bit outside of what we can discuss tonight about this. It's really turning into a discussion item with the operator.
Understood.
Thank you. Okay, discussion
Thank
over. Thank you. So we're done with 13?
Yeah, done with 13, and then,
Go 14.
We're going to do the ops and comment report next month, correct?
yeah,
Rest
we
of
can
it.
do all
Okay.
those. I think you're gonna talk about item 9 and then 16 and 17, is that right?
That works.
So,
Wait, Kevin, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
before you go on, because I know that we're not doing item 11 right now, but there was a comment I wanted to make
Yeah.
that is timely in there, and
Yeah.
I'm wondering, can I make this comment? It's nothing about the content of the thing. I just want to recognize some people.
yeah, no, I can totally do that.
Okay, particularly given what has happened this week, and we have a safety kind of, heightened sort of sensitivity to safety. When I'm a pilot, one of the things that we learn when we go through our flight training is to check our fuel, because airports dispense multiple types of fuel, and if you put the wrong type of fuel in an airplane, it can be a very bad situation that you don't realize until you've just taken off. So we always check fuel super carefully. In that report, there is a discussion about our team recognizing a polluted, contaminated fuel batch that was delivered to us before it contaminated our tanks, before it got into any aircraft here on the field. Adam Duncan, Scott Tetzlaff, and Tim Burke recognized and challenged the fuel delivery service that the same fuel that they had already delivered to other airfields
That accepted it
was contaminated. And I realized this was just in a report, and it didn't. If attention was not called to this, it might not be appreciated for what it was. That could have saved lives. That could have created a horrible situation for aircraft departing this field. So we owe them a debt of thanks for being on top of that. Obviously, to an extent that other airfields were not. So thanks to those 3 guys.
Yeah.
Here, here.
Yeah, I'll convey that, and we as a staff have talked a lot about it, and we, I just explained a little bit of this to the group, that we invest in our employees and their training at a higher level than most airports. These folks go through basic and advanced ASOS training. ASOS is Aviation Safety and Operation Safety. It's essentially the school they go through for fueling, and I've been through the basic one. It was a few years ago, so I couldn't remember the name, but we do invest in that so that these kind of situations can be mitigated when we do get a contaminated load that had some diesel in it with the Jet A. And I really appreciate you bringing it up, and I will convey that over to our employees, because they work hard. Those guys work very hard out there to provide a safe environment for aircraft to operate in.
Okay, thanks for that, David. Let's go back to number 9.
Yeah, so originally, I should note that I did indicate to both the Friends of the Library and the Air Show that these items likely would not be discussed because of the meeting prior. It doesn't mean you can't discuss it. You can take action on any item on the agenda. It's listed on the front page, but just with some of your comments, some of the board members and some of your feelings, it would be good to let the air show committee know sooner than later of any thoughts or comments or your desire to have that, and so I can work with them now. Otherwise, it's weeks before the show.
What is your recommendation, Kevin?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, these groups work very hard. They've worked very hard all year. They use this money from the air show to run a lot of programs in our community, not just for the 3 nonprofits that are on there, but there's 3 or 4 more nonprofits that also depend on these funds for their budget. And like we did last year, we went ahead and respected the amount of effort they put in, and we still provided that budget number. But I do agree that the airport is in a different position than it was on Monday morning, and we need to put, we really need to take into account, what people have been through, and so I'm really interested in your thoughts. But
I'll give you my thoughts.
It's a tough thing.
I think we need to cancel the air show. I think we need to pay the nonprofits so that they continue the good work. I just think back to 4:30 through 6, and being at the crash site and listening to all the people. I think this is, we talk about doing something. This will affect many people, but this is something we can do right now, and I believe that we should cancel it and fulfill our commitments. That's my opinion.
David?
I agree.
Kat?
I agree.
Mary?
I think we got your consensus.
I agree as well.
You want a motion?
No, it's not on the agenda for action on that, but what we can do is put it on as soon as possible for official action.
Thank you, Josh.
So the consensus is to cancel. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, any public comment on this topic?
I do not have any written via email.
I don't see any hands raised.
No hands raised via
Okay.
Zoom.
Thank you very much. Let's go into 14.
I think we're just doing 16 and 17, right?
I do have a hand.
Or did?
Oh, wait, we have a hand.
For Sherry, go ahead and make a public comment via Zoom.
Was it Sherry Lewis?
It was.
You took it down? Okay.
So it was my understanding that you wanted to tackle the biodiesel and the calipers one, but 14 and 15 are delayed.
Okay, that
All right.
works. Yep. So 16.
Perfect. So yeah, so this is a request to enter into agreement with the town of Truckee and the Truckee Fire Protection District to study the plausibility, possibility, feasibility of using biomass similar to what they have been doing in Quincy, California for heat and power generation for public buildings. And so the idea would be, is there a way to do a small microgrid right around the town, the fire station, this building, potentially, if we lease land to the hospital district, to heat and power buildings using a lot of the biomass we collect. And so this is just a study. It's about $6,500 or $6,400 of our funds to partner with them to see if it's feasible. We went and saw a working plant in Quincy, and it was very interesting what they were doing up there. And so this would get you some data and information on that to see if it's a possibility. And we have a lot of biomass just on the airport that we need to do something with, as do a lot of other agencies.
David?
I just have a question. When we say feasibility, what does feasibility look like? Does that also include whether or not the processing of the biomass ends up being a pollutant that we're not? Is all
They do
of that?
It's a triple bottom line, social, economical, and financial. They look at everything, even to the point of, for generating our own power, who's paying for the power we would have bought that the Truckee Donner PUD has purchased, that they have to, that you have to raise rates on other people. They'll go through that whole concept, and so you'll get all of that, including what the GHG benefits of something like this is versus right now we do a lot of mastication. We chip, that breaks down, releases methane. Is it better to do that, or is it better to burn it? Where we can capture the soot, capture a lot of that. It's not completely green as far as zero emission, but you're going to see all that. It'll break that down for you in a feasibility analysis. And then there's a second level of feasibility that you do beyond that if it looks like it might work.
Okay. Rick, do you have anything to add?
No.
Kat?
I'm all for doing the study. I think it's a great idea. I do remember several years ago, Community Foundation was working with the, maybe it was Loyalton. There's an old biomass, but it had fallen into disuse, and one of the issues with that was finding enough fuel. And so, even though go back in all the woods up north of town, there are huge piles of wood when the loggers take the logs and then they strip it down and leave all the branches and whatnot. It's very difficult to extract that and get it to the biomass facility. So I like the idea of the feasibility study. I do wonder, how they plan to find enough biomass to keep it going.
Yeah, and we can get it in a lot more detail when you get the study. The Quincy plant that they're running there is fascinating to see how they've addressed all those concerns.
Oh, cool.
And if anyone want to go there, we'll take on a field trip up there, maybe when the fires are over. But
Yeah, I would go. That sounds fun.
And in terms of, this is what I do, the CO2, I'm all for it, reducing greenhouse gases, but greenhouse gas, you think CO2 or methane. The net effect is burning it, you also get PM10, PM2.5, which is a big deal for us. We get inversions, you get inversions, where it just sits socked in. So I'm hoping that they address the PM10, PM2.5 issues, because that's direct lung impacts. The other thing is that in their proposal, they talk about Placer County Air Pollution Control District, using data from them, and I assume they're looking at their regulations. But if it's cited on Nevada County line, that's in Northern Sierra Air Quality Management District, which has different rules and regs. I work in different areas, and each air district has different rules and regulations. And so in this feasibility study, when they're addressing rules and regulations, they'll have to address both places.
thank you. I knew Mary would have a gem on this. That's a good one. Thank you.
So let's see, it sounds like consensus is yes, let's do this study.
Yeah, so it's an action item. So
Okay, do we have any public comment on this item? I see Tom Meadows has his hand up.
Yes, Tom Meadows on Zoom.
Yeah, it's not a comment. I just want to know what happened to agenda item 14.
We're pushing that to the next meeting.
Oh, thank you.
Any other public comment, written or otherwise?
No written public comment.
Okay.
Okay, we got to make a motion on this.
Did we?
We need
I haven't seen a motion or, yeah.
I move to authorize the general manager to enter into an agreement with Town of Truckee and the Truckee Fire Protection District to retain
Wilderfor Consulting Services LLC to complete a bioenergy project scoping study per the attached agreement with the district contributing to the study, $6,400.
I'll second it.
All right. Vice President Diamond.
Yes.
Director Hetherington.
Yes.
President Odette.
Yes.
Director Rolfe.
Yes.
Director Stevens.
Yes.
Excellent.
Thank you.
And we have CalPERS 17.
Is Kelly Wu somewhere out there?
You know, we talked about this in June, and basically we have 2.9 million that CalPERS is charging us like 7% interest on, and we've got money in the bank that we're getting 1.2% interest. And Kelly has looked at it, and if you look at her staff report, she's suggesting we make a pay down, and the sample motion is at $500,000. I don't understand why we don't do $1 million. We got the money in the bank, and Kelly was suggesting an additional payment beyond that, you know, maybe in 6 months. I think I'd like to. I won't make the motion until we talk about this more, but I think we ought to put $1 million there. This is costing us money. The negative arbitrage is insane.
Well, Kelly, you want to fill us in on the details?
Hi, sorry, my camera keeps going in and out. We just, like I'm having that stuff, but we did speak a little bit with the actuarial, and basically the information that we get from CalPERS every year with the valuation report is telling us what we've talked about with Jeff from BBK and what the actuarial said as well. We're better off just doing an additional payment every year. So I just did our prepayment for 2021 last week, and that was about $240,000. And now I think we just need to do an additional one, budget for it every year, and then we can get that paid down pretty quickly. The dollar amount is up to you guys.
Have you got the $1 million?
Maybe.
Well, so you're saying the actuarial, that analysis that we agreed to, they're saying don't do that? Or they're saying?
Well,
I'm
when we left
confused.
that last meeting, we felt strongly that what the board was telling us is that if we needed to do an actuarial study to help make a decision, then to go do that. When we started talking this through, we realized, based on information that we already get from CalPERS, talking to others, there's, you know, the Truckee Sanitation District, the North Star CSD, others have been down this path. We realized that there wasn't really the value to doing that we had the information that we need, which is, because essentially we were trying to do that actuarial study to decide if we should do this. And we couldn't find anything that says we shouldn't. And so we didn't spend that money.
Got it, okay.
Just because we didn't think it was a good use of it. Plus, CalPERS provides some actuarial data to us. We found that those, and sorry, I'll be quiet, I know I'm laboring this, but the districts that have huge amounts with public safety agencies need that kind of stuff. I don't think we do.
Right.
Yeah, we basically have money in the bank at 1.2%, and we're borrowing 7+% from CalPERS. I don't think that makes sense.
Which they'll kind of argue you're paying to yourself, but I agree, what you're saying, yes.
All right, let's make this simple. I move we make an additional.
Wait. We ain't calling.
I don't want to hear anymore.
We all get a chance. David, you first.
I understand the concept here. I just with reference to the first meeting that we had, it did seem like we might be having conversations about stuff that we want to do that might cost an awful lot of money. I would say go with the 500,000 now, and maybe if we could just have that conversation and then decide if we need money or if we don't, pay it in a month or so.
I'm okay with the half money.
Yeah, that's my thought on it.
We have it on as a budget discussion item next month.
Okay.
So for additional payments next year.
Otherwise, I'm all about paying down debt.
Kat?
I could go either way. I think my personal preference is to pay it off as quickly as possible. But, you know, if this is something that the board wants to discuss further in the budget meeting or look at if we need to keep some money around, then we can do that too.
Mary?
I'm on the $500,000. I'm in the $500,000 court.
I'm in the $500,000 today with the
But when we-
open-ended, we can write a check later.
Yep.
Yeah.
When we get
Yeah.
through the current situation. Motion?
May I move to approve a payment of $500,000 to CalPERS towards paying down our UAL unfunded liability in August of 2021.
I'll second.
Roll call.
You asked public comment, right?
Oh, no, I didn't.
No.
Public comment.
Sorry.
I see no hands.
No written public comment.
Okay.
Okay, Vice President Diamond,
Yes.
Director Heatherington,
Yes.
President Odette,
Yes.
Director Rolfe,
Yes.
Director Stevens.
Yes.
I will say on behalf of staff, thank you. This is something we really appreciate, how much attention the board puts into this.
Agreed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone that's participating out there. We appreciate it. And we need a motion to adjourn.
Can I ask one
Oh,
question?
Yes.
In person or Zoom in the future?
I'm good either way. I mean, the traffic at the light coming
There's a lot of people in town.
Kings Beach is awful.
Yeah.
At 4:30.
Oh, yeah, 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So I'll try and get a meeting together within the next 2 weeks. We'll see what we can do to tackle the rest of these items because you have a full agenda in August.
Let's do that when, it'll be a short one. Let's do that Zoom.
Okay, do that one Zoom. And then do you want to be in person in August? We may be wearing masks again in here.
Well, then
so-
no. I don't want to come in and wear a mask. I'd rather Zoom.
I concur.
Okay, so Zoom in August and then a Zoom meeting for the special meeting to tackle these other items.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Roll call.
All right, Vice President Diamond,
Yes.
Director Heatherington, President Odette,
Yes.
Director Rolfe,
Yes.
and Director Stevens.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody, for